Tech Team Weekly. This show may contain mature language and themes.
Hello and welcome to the show. This is Tech Team Weekly, your weekly roundup of tech news brought to you by your friendly neighborhood co-hosts. Sanjay from engineering.
Hello.
Hey, nice to see you. How you doing?
I'm great, thank you, Gwen. How are you?
Yeah, not too shabby. And
Great.
Neil from testing. Neil, it's amazing to see you. How are you?
Hello, hi Gwen. Yeah, really good. Thank you. Hi, listeners, viewers, everybody. Yeah, really good. Really good. Autumn is definitely here. The clocks have changed. Things are very confusing. We've got through that tough week where the UK changed its clocks, but the US doesn't. Like last week, getting anything done was impossible. Like I kept having to remind people the time that you think this meeting is not the time that it actually is, because I meeting arranged on US time, so it's the same time for them. But in the UK, it's like, no, we need to remember to turn up an hour early.
Amazing. Yeah, I always find this week really interesting because the radio is different because I listen to a New Jersey radio station and everything. It's just such a bizarre week. I didn't say it was amazing to see you either. Sorry, Sanj, it's bloody incredible to see you.
Don't worry, I know it's amazing to me. It's amazing to see you as well.
Good. So coming up today, we have our usual kind of stuff. We have our stand-ups for the week. We have social engineering, where we discuss what people have been saying, and also podcast-driven development, where we talk about all the metrics. Lots of social engineering today, which is really good. And this week, we're talking about the hottest topic on the press, which is COP26 and all the climate tech stuff that's going on as well. And News Bytes, we've got some really interesting little tidbits there. And finally, the wash-up to round us off. So thanks for joining us. Amazing to have you.
The stand-up.
So this week on the work front, again, lots of secret stuff happening that I can't really talk about. A few people have heard about it, but it's not really ready for public consumption yet. But there's some exciting stuff happening. That's what I'll say. Stay tuned for a week or two before I tell you what all that is. However, I did finally get an email invite to join GitHub Copilot, which I was talking about as my new news bite in episode 1. And it's taken, so therefore, 10 weeks before they finally allowed me to join the program. So this is the feature in GitHub that lets you do code completion using AI, like you type a function name and it fills the entire function, basically using Stack Overflow answers. Really looking forward to trying that out. I've not touched it yet because I'd like to record and stream my first experiences. I'll probably do that on maybe even Twitch sometime this coming week. Stay tuned for that. I've also got involved in some gaming for the first time in ages. Nintendo have just released a new mobile game called Pikmin Bloom. Pikmin is a popular Nintendo game franchise starting back in the GameCube days. It's from the same people who made Pokemon Go, and it's very similar gameplay-wise. There's a really nice USP in there, though, that in order to grow your Pikmin, which are like little flower creatures, you have to take steps in the real world. Like you'll collect a seedling and you need 10,000 steps before you can unlock it. So it encourages you to get out. And again, it gives you those nudges. Pokemon Go obviously was about getting outside, but Pikmin is really about getting exercise. There's one major... in my eyes, a major security flaw in there, though, in that as you walk around in the real world, you lay a trail of flowers behind you. Now, very similar to these things like Strava. Mm-hmm. If you start laying these flowers as soon as you leave the house and you stop when you get home, you very quickly get a picture in your neighborhood of who is playing the game. I can walk to the door of someone I know who must be playing this because there's a loop that goes around starting from their house. It's a little bit worrying. You can control when you lay and don't lay flowers, so you can wait till you got a bit away from your house, but that's something to watch out for, particularly if you know someone who's got kids who's playing it. Just watch who's got access to their data. Finally, this is kind of a news bite, really, but the world of Peloton, obviously, which is close to my heart. Big goings on there this week. They had a big shareholder meeting where they announced their earnings were significantly down this quarter, or their estimates were down, insofar as people are, I guess, going back to real gyms faster than they expected. Their stock price plummeted by 30 or 40% overnight. It went from like $90 a share to $55, I think, overnight. Their CEO, John Foley, was a billionaire, isn't now. I'm sure he'll live, but he lost $400 million of his personal earnings overnight. So I think, but yeah, I mean, the company's not going anywhere. I mean, literally, they make stationary bikes, but it's just, I think that it's been caused by a lot of like amateur investors jumping on the bandwagon during COVID and then jumping off very quickly all at the same time. There are a lot of companies who are going through these big cycles right now. But yeah, it's not good to see.
Interesting.
Yeah,
do you have stocks in them?
Yeah.
No, I don't. but obviously I'm heavily invested in them from a workout perspective. They're not going to go away, but they are going to have to look at cost cutting. They put a hiring freeze in place.
Wow.
They do a lot of crazy things, like they send their instructors out to, like, they recently launched a load of classes from Iceland, where they're like literally they're driving around the mountains. I took some during Test Bash last week. I imagine they will do less of that going forwards. But their core offering is still there and it's still good. But I think people are realizing, maybe it's not the only future out there.
Yeah.
It's really shocking to see that sharp a decline in their price, though, so quickly, like overnight. That's unheard of, right?
Yeah, I don't play the markets for this reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, moving on to my stand-up update. So work is going great. It's all good. I'm getting stuck into the more meaty things now. I'm having to, I'm getting a fantastic opportunity to collaborate more closely with the people on my team who've been super helpful and really nice. So that's been really great. Having a lot of support there. Externally, Sky are plugging a reboot of Sex and the City, which is coming back, I think, in December or something. It's a 10-episode miniseries, and it's called And Just Like That. I'm sure we'll all be very excited to see that. But it will be interesting to see how they've changed, because, it's been like 20 years or something. I'm not sure.
And Kim Cattrall isn't in it anymore because she had a massive falling out with Sarah Jessica Parker, didn't she? She was like, you were always a horrible woman to me, like, get fucked. Yeah.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting. But one thing that did kind of blow my mind this week is I watched this series on Amazon Prime, and it's so noteworthy that I just have to really quickly mention it, called Kevin Can F Himself. Have either of you seen this or heard of it?
I've seen the advert. It's like literally the title on a slide on the Prime homepage, because obviously they censor the F. But I don't have no clue what it's about.
It's brilliant.
Really?
So it's the story of like a sitcom wife. So, in like a typical sitcom, you've got like the husband who's always like, bumbling and getting into nonsense, and, and then, there's the poor wife in the background who always has to pick up the pieces. So it's kind of like half sitcom and half like really dark, terrifying, freaky kind of drama.
Oh, really?
And it's amazing. It's like this exploration of like, these sort of downtrodden women, like the men in their lives who are just getting away with everything, they never get any blame. And, this woman just has to like deal with everything, and her life is just horrible and brutal. And it's super dark. And it's like, I binge watched it twice.
Twice?
Twice. It's that good. And I'm planning on the third. So yeah.
Wow.
So just check it out. Kevin Can F Himself.
We'll definitely check that out. And I'm very relieved, because I was worried when I saw that sentence in your show notes that you were talking about your friend Kevin. I'm like, what's he done?
Well, Kev knows he can always help himself. That's a given.
Oh, how interesting. I actually considered, I was like, should I get a streaming service this week? And then I didn't. So yeah, I'm still like completely out of touch with any of that kind of stuff. Cool. So, my stand-up. So it has been, a really stressful time at work, and it's starting to come to a head at the moment. So I'm really tired. It's been messing with my sleep, which is really unusual for me, but yeah. So next week I'll be able to say what's going on, I guess. And yeah, so, because it's been going on so long, it feels like there's like different amounts of pain all the time. So yeah, we'll see. I've been putting people on the progression framework, which has been really interesting and pretty good, because it seems like I've written it well enough to work. So I tried to write it so introverts and extroverts were considered. Some of the things we're having to skip for some people, and because we're using the same one for the testers, we just skip it. So one of the people at work is a mathematician, fantastic genius at maths, and had some problems sorting out the maths for the framework, because you've got level 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and so if you put that, you'll never be able to get higher than a 5. And so it was just how do we sort this out? Kind of boring, maths, but interesting. I did the 8-hour product workshop. Thanks to the people that reached out with some tips, I ended up taking a boatload of Sharpies and drawing cubes and coloring them in for the entire session. And outside of work, I got my flu jab, went for tea on Wednesday. I saw Oliver at the theatre on Thursday, and I'm going to a friend's birthday tonight. I'm still not very happy about going outside. We're trying to ease ourselves into it, but it's quite weird. But yeah, So yeah, interesting week.
Busy social week.
Yeah, very unusual. Like, because usually we don't really do anything because it's COVID times, but it's like, because I was going into work on Wednesday, Ash, my partner, was like, "Oh, do you want to grab tea?" And I was like, "Yeah, we should do that." And like it felt quite safe. Yeah, and for the theatre, we got box seats, so we didn't have to sit near anyone. So that was quite good.
Nice.
Like, yeah, I'm still like, get away from me.
And there is now news of a pill we take, right? If you get COVID, you just take a pill now, and apparently you don't get sick.
Really?
I think so. I heard about this on the radio yesterday.
So
I've seen headlines at least. Yeah.
I'm suspicious because they had the swine flu one as well, didn't they? But the swine flu one, if you had mental health problems, it wasn't very good for you.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. I will have to look into it. But yeah, I don't know if this will have the same effect. It might have been specific to the swine flu thing. I am very excited to hear that news. I had no idea about that. I don't know how I missed it.
Social engineering.
We've got a lot to get through in social engineering. So this is great. I mean, it's been a fantastic week for people reaching out to us. Ben Darfler, whose article we were talking about last week about stand-ups, said, "Glad you all enjoyed the article. I certainly enjoyed the conversation. Gwen diagram. I hope you'll share how your trial goes. Be interesting to hear about that." Lee Hawkins says, "Another really enjoyable listen, not just on testing, but on all things tech." Yes, thank you, Lee. There are other things in engineering apart from tech. Fascinating, isn't it? So, but on an aside, thank you so much, Lee, for all of the shares. He's one of our biggest fans on LinkedIn. Really, really appreciate it. Jesper reached out to say, change stand-ups to check-in. I have a monthly call with some volunteers. The first 10 minutes are about what's on everyone's mind, and status is next. Sounds like a pretty good idea. Replying to you, Neil, I think he said to normalize that people can be absent once in a while from the daily team call. I think absolutely. I know at Sky that's perfectly fine. They're very, very flexible, which is a great way to work. Jesper told us his wins for the week were that he wrote his first blog post in 6 weeks, and it's the first time he's been to this gym in 6 weeks too as well. So a double win there. Great work, Jesper. And I was just like so curious. I said, "Okay, well, what's your blog?" And he linked it, and I started reading it. And it's like amazing. It's on it's all about like when to test and why and how to test and stuff. And it was really, really interesting article, and introduced a new phrase in my vocabulary, which is MTTR, which you two might know about.
Time to recovery, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. I love that phrase. I'm going to totally use that everywhere from now on, just to sound like I'm really, clever. I know what I'm talking about. Kristen said, "I bought a Mirror 2 in 2015 just before my back operation. Best investment I ever made. It's hands down the most comfy chair I ever sat in. Wasn't cheap though. Looking at getting the wife one also. I disabled the rocking." Gwen, you're a fan of the rocking.
I like the rocking a lot. Yeah.
So I checked out those chairs. I was like, "Oh yeah, I could buy." I mean, they're bloody expensive. It's like $1 or $2 grand.
So I think ours were like 800. Yes, they're stupidly expensive, but they will last for like 10 years. It's a thing of hopefully more than that. But it's I buy expensive, so I hopefully never have to buy things again. I'm very tight. In a strange way.
It's a good call. Someone once said to me, "Buy cheap, buy twice," and that's so stuck. It's so
true,
totally, right?
Totally.
How about that beauty you're rocking there, Mr. Stud?
Yeah, it is a very good recliner as well. Absolutely agree. I mean, it's not just buy cheap, buy twice. If you're buying a cheap chair, that you also going to have to pay for your back massages, whatever you do your back in. Particularly in these days where I am permanently working remotely. It's not very easy for me to have like a home, one of these health and safety, workstation inspections like a lot of in-office companies have. So, I'm just not taking any chances. I want to make sure that I'm treating my body with respect, because Lord knows I need to at this age.
That's you're preaching to the choir. I'm definitely going to have to buy a new chair. I'll keep looking.
You can get them secondhand as well, apparently, which are pretty good.
I'll have a look. Yeah. It's painful. I don't think I've ever spent more than like £100 on a chair, and I feel like I should. Just get a good one.
That was how much my old one was, and it fell apart. So, yeah.
Okay, moving on. Simon Pryor. So sorry, Simon, we missed this in the last episode, but he said EasyJet are hiring for a senior test manager for a holiday site, responsible for front end and back end systems with a view to shift testing left and introduce the right automation. They have to work with me too. Contact me for more details. That's Simon Pryor on Twitter. Simon's a great guy. I know both of you speak very highly of him. EasyJet's a very cool company. I have a friend who works there in mechanical engineering as well. And this sounds like a great gig. He says, we're running weekly test parties at EasyJet where we invite all areas of the business together and exploratory test our systems. Had our tech director and other senior leadership members come along this week. Great way to spend our Friday afternoons. Sure. Well, whatever rocks your boat, Simon. Kev said, keep the stand-ups, please. The only way I can find out what's happening with you, Sanj. And he says, my typeface is cousine or cousin. It's like cousin, French for cousin, I guess that looks like. And I checked it out, and it's a very nice typeface, but it's a very graphic artist. It's a very print kind of typeface, So yeah, really suits him.
I'll tack on to the end of that just very quickly, update on our podcast-driven development. Basically, all ticking along. It's been a quiet week for new subs, particularly on YouTube. No more patrons on Patreon. The LinkedIn follow account is unchanged, but Twitter's still going up. And our graphs of people viewing us on YouTube and listening to us on podcast feeds are both still going up very nice straight line. So can't complain about that. But really, for this part of the section, it's really, we want to be here for you. If you, our listeners, have got things you want to know, any behind the scenes information, fire some questions and we'll try and answer them. I think one really nice thing for us to do sometime will be for us to all to do a little visual tour of our offices. Sanj, I notice your camera is pointing in a slightly different direction this week. Like I get to see a little bit more of your face.
That's right, because Sky are delivering all these TVs and consoles and devices, so I'm having to move stuff around. It's all in shift right now, so yeah, you're in a slightly different place. Oh. I have a television on my desk the size of a bed.
Whoa.
I think it would be really, really nice for us all to see, to share a picture of us, taking 10 steps back from the desk and showing what we are seeing in front of us right now. So flip it around. That'd be nice for us to do for this.
Totally.
This week's epic.
So, in a 1-2 sucker punch for the government, there's another plan. It feels like was it last week or the week before we spoke about the AI plan? Well, they've got another plan, and it sounds all right. So the UK Prime Minister is launching an international plan to deliver clean and affordable technology everywhere by 2030 at COP26. This has already been signed by 40 countries, representing more than 70% of the world's economy, which is very good news. COP26, of course, is the 26th UN climate conference hosted by us in Glasgow and presided by our very own Alex Sharma. The aim is for net zero. The first 5 goals in this plan are to cover more than 50% of global emissions. The key headings are power, road transport, steel, hydrogen, and agriculture. I believe this weekend they're talking for the first time seriously about agriculture and its impact and what they can do. Of course, we live in an age where private enterprise has really been increasing the reach, impact, and effect on our lives, and filling in that missing role that government and leadership kind of just aren't. Now, the government and NGOs around the world are quick to realize this as well. Our own government and the United Nations are enabling and empowering green and climate tech startups and companies to sort of take off. Top startups fueling London's climate tech startup boom are Octopus, which probably we all know about. They're about renewable energy, particularly electricity. Nucleo, this is a new one to me, which probably most people haven't heard of. This is nuclear energy, and it's done by air liquefaction. So the more I read into this, the more my mind just boggled. So I'm going to tell you what I know.
Yeah, please do.
Basically, it's insane. It's liquid air. So they freeze air. They make air so cold. Apparently, our air, when it's so cold, turns into liquid.
That's amazing. Okay?
And they store it in these high pressure cylinders. And then when they expose it to room temperature, it sort of expands and releases 700 times the amount of energy that it originally stored. So this is an interesting new tech that's coming up.
But
carbon cleans.
Sanj, tell me how they freeze it. So doesn't it use still a lot of energy to freeze the air?
Energy to freeze it. I don't know, man.
Oh, how exciting.
I know. It's interesting, though.
Probably just move the air to Manchester.
Just ship it up north and then, bring it back down south. There is also Carbon Clean Solutions. This is industrial carbon dioxide recovery. Very, very important stuff here. Really useful. And we're shifting from, the very large scale down to the human scale. And the final startup, climate tech startup that we have highlighted is one called Olio. This allows you to share excess food. I'm presuming not only individuals but organizations can get involved, and they already have 5 million users in the UK. So an interesting one to check out. I'm
going to just throw in one more company that announced sort of breaking news just like 12 hours before we recorded. A company that announced at COP that they're a UK aeronautics company called Reaction Engines, and they've announced that they have a jet engine for planes that can run on ammonia. So it's clean plane tech that they reckon will be good to go within a decade. It's a bold statement. Whether they're making that statement to keep themselves honest and keep themselves pushing forward, I don't know. But the idea of clean air transport is incredible.
Did you see?
We have.
Oh, sorry, Sanj.
No. No, sorry,
did you see the blimps as well? So, it must have been about 8 months ago. They were talking about using blimps, which I was very, very excited about. But Ash rightly said how blimps were a very bad idea after the big blimp disaster that happened. So
this is an interesting epic. I want to start by asking the two of you what your opinions are on the state of our climate change and what's going on at COP26 right now.
So there was a really interesting YouGov survey. They asked the daily things, and in that they said, when did you last talk about climate? And it's many times in the last week, like once in the last week. And I talk about it all the time. My partner talks about it all the time. He's really, really obsessed about it. But also I'm very passionate about it. Everything's really terrible. I don't like it. I hope that we can improve it. I'm excited about companies attempting to improve it, because it is companies that need to do it. So it's really disappointing. You work really hard to look at your own waste that you create and do all this zero waste stuff, but it's a drop in the fucking ocean compared to what these companies are doing. Coca-Cola, how much plastic are they putting into the world? And they you have to go and you have to find a zero waste store and put all this effort in. Make it easier for us to do it. Why are you creating all this waste? Makes me very angry, and it makes you feel really helpless, because you want to improve things, but at least you're trying.
Yeah, I think of it very similar to things like diversity and inclusion initiatives, in that we can each try and be the way that we want to. We can act the way that we want to, and we could seek out companies that seem to be behaving in ways that we like, but we can't change things on an organisation level. And I think having more and more of these big conversations, it can only be helpful. It's really interesting. Certainly, I don't watch that much TV, but certainly adverts that I'm seeing on TV, a lot of them at the moment are focused on companies displaying their new green initiatives, or talking about how they're looking to reduce plastic and things. And sometimes people accuse them of virtue signaling, but it's a signal. We need more signals. We need to encourage people that this is the way to live, and that it's not that difficult. If you think about things like our individual carbon footprints, areas of that have been on the table for years now. People have an understanding of their travel carbon footprint and how much emissions you will consume on a plane flight, for example, and the carbon footprint of food, the benefits of growing locally and living sustainably on that sort of side. We don't talk at all about the carbon footprints of tech. And it's really interesting, certainly with the rise of Bitcoin, which is hugely destructive for the environment in terms of the processing power that you need for machines, and the heat that these machines put out. And we're seeing it now with in a COVID world, with the amount of commuting going down. We see satellite pictures of countries who are putting less emissions out into the world, particularly like March 2020. Those pictures out of China that just showed crystal clear skies because there was just no smog. I think people are gaining an appreciation for this. This is something we need to change.
So It might sound like I have my tinfoil hat on, but I will find evidence to back this up, although it is internet evidence. But the people that invented the carbon footprint thing was BP, to try and push the problem back on people. Yeah, so I will find the data to show that, just to show that I'm not just wearing a tinfoil hat.
This is one thing I wholeheartedly agree with. You know, the problem is, I mean, we as individuals have all accepted we need to do something about this, right? Or the majority of people, let's say, you know, at least half, right? But the problem is with these huge companies, right? And they keep reframing the problem as if it's our fault. And they put out these, like, Shell will put out a tweet saying, "What are you doing to make the environment better?" And I love the replies they get. You know, when we're not releasing 500,000 barrels of oil into the Gulf of Mexico.
Fuck you, man. Like, you're ruining our world and you're trying to push the problem back on us. Like, you know, use beeswax wrap instead of fucking cling film or whatever. And it's just, it makes me so mad. I'm really passionate about this. I do try and put a lot of effort into, to have a low carbon footprint, but yes, it is really difficult when it's like, it's a drop in the ocean.
Are our leaders globally failing us? Even our very own queen last week was quoted as saying she's really upset with leaders for, you know, talking a big game year after year and not doing anything with no results.
They're completely failing us. So, 2030 is better than what it used to be. It always used to be fucking 2050, didn't it? And it's like, you are killing us. You're absolutely killing us. And they cover, like, so many of the, like, BP and what are they called? Like, oil companies. Like, they just covered stuff up. Like, they did research on this in the 80s and they covered all of it up. It's, a proper sound tinfoil hat.
I think you're right, though.
Yeah, I think companies are running out of excuses, and I think that's part of what COP26 is looking to do. It's like people are saying, this, you know, clean tech is expensive, and now the conglomerate is saying, well, what if we subsidise? What if we make it affordable? So that affordability is not your excuse. Go and do it. And the whole concept of, Sam, you mentioned that the 5 initiatives they're pushing. One of them is green steel. So steel that is produced using hydrogen or electric power, because steel production is traditionally, you know, it's fossil fuel burning enterprise. Like that sounds amazing. Like if you could take one of the big players off the table, that can only help. Yeah.
I'm really proud globally that entrepreneurs and, you know, innovators are coming in to fill the space. You know, they're creating things and opportunities for us to invest in and partake in, and, you know, make things better. And I'm glad that governments and the UN are investing in that. But, you know, I feel like they should be doing more themselves, right? Because in the past, it was always their responsibility, right? It's not an enterprise's responsibility technically to solve our world's problems, right?
Yeah, totally. I'm really excited to hear what comes out of the agriculture stuff for COP26, because I have very strong feelings about this, with the supermarkets pushing food prices so low that they're pushing it down for the farmers, which means that they have to take shortcuts, and therefore they can't create like safe food for people because they're having to get pushed so much. And that will not be green if they're having to do it cheaply. It's
If you are aware of any interesting green or climate tech companies, reach out to us. We'd really love to hear about them. We can give them a little shout as well. Maybe mention them next week. And in terms of the climate, I don't really know what to say. I mean, I wish the future was brighter, and I'm glad that it looks like at this the final minute of the final second, you know, hopefully we do something, you know, there's some sign that change is happening, and we're, you know, we'll be progressing to net zero, but, you know, who knows? It's out of our hands, right? We've done what we can. We recycle. We watch our carbon footprint. We shut the light off, right? We close the windows.
You're going to trigger me with the recycling thing as well.
Oh no!
I'm going to drop in a quick name check for a think piece that Wired did online this week. titled "Stop Telling Kids They'll Die from Climate Change," which it's a very interesting, if contentious piece. It's saying, should we be opening our kids' eyes up to the fact that the world is burning, or is this just do they need protection from like doomsday scenarios? But I certainly fall on the side of they need to know what's going on.
So this is really interesting because in the 80s they had the whole Cold War thing, and so a lot of people that are older than me in English talk about the television show Threads and how absolutely terrifying it was to them when they were a kid. But a lot of people that were like children in the 80s grew up absolutely terrified of nuclear war. It's just the new thing. I think we're always growing up scared of stuff.
But this feels like a reasonable one to be slightly concerned about anyway, right?
Totally.
It's not going to go away on its own.
No.
News Bytes.
I want to talk about supply shortages for chips because I'm a really big fan of the book The Goal by Eli Goldratt. And I'm also a big fan of supply chains and just-in-time production. However, just-in-time production doesn't seem to be working well at the moment because there is no end in sight for the current chip shortage. So ARS Technica reports that it was predicted that the global chip shortage was looking to ease sometime in 2022. However, that forecast seems to have been optimistic. So demand continues to go up as people continue buying new phones, tablets, and laptops and continue using really network-heavy streaming services. So companies such as Intel, Samsung, and TSMC, who I hadn't heard of, but are all working to build new fabs, but they won't come online for years. So this is a problem mixed in with the talent shortage, because they can't get more people to build the chips. It's not looking great. And they've also had shipping delays adding to this problem. So what's really interesting out of all of this is just in time just isn't an option anymore. So Robert Mayer, the president of Semiconductor Advisors, said that users of semiconductors that used to do just-in-time manufacturing have gone to stockpiling literally a year's worth of parts to counteract any potential shortages. So this is a really interesting change in manufacturing. For a long time, just-in-time has been hammered in, with all of the Toyota theories and Kaizen and stuff like that. And things are having to change because of all these shortages.
That's very interesting. The chip shortage is a huge problem, particularly with graphics cards, because we have the chip shortage, can't produce enough, and then they're all being sucked up by crypto miners, right? You just can't get a graphics card, and they're worth so much. Remember I was telling you I had to sell some stuff on eBay? I sold my old graphics card. It was a 1080, like a GTX 1080. I got almost what I paid for it 5 years ago.
Oh my God.
Right?
That's insane. I found it really interesting how used cars have gone up in price so much as well because you can't get new cars. The effect it's having is so interesting. I'm really looking forward to seeing if a new dawn of manufacturing happens.
Yeah, I think coming back to the main story as well, we need to do more with particularly our old mobile phones. Our phones are built to last, and we're just changing them because we want the newest, smartest phones. I know there are a lot of recycling services out there that a lot of people will use because you get quite a lot of cash back for your old phone. But I've got a drawer full of the things, and these are full of chips that even if I recycled them, they might just get melted down rather than the chips themselves being reused. I think there needs to be another shake up in that industry of actually, you have a drawer full of things that people could put to good use.
Yep.
There's a lot of gold in mobile phones, isn't there? Well, I mean, there's a lot of everything, but it's so interesting.
I mean, I've got my old Pixel 3 here right next to me. I can't, traditionally I could have traded this in and got £100 for it. I've got a tiny crack on the screen, which means my phone is now worth £1. So it's sitting on my desk because I can't be asked to recycle it for £1. But I should just find somewhere I actually should just donate this. Right off the pound, I need to get that stuff back into the stream somewhere. But obviously not literally the stream. I'm not going to throw it into the stream. But anyway,
I always end up using them for testing anyway. So any that are still worth it. So even a iPhone 5 I had, I ended up taking it in for Monzo because it was on a really old thing, and it was we need an iPhone 5 and we can't find one. So yeah, they do come in handy for testing, but I don't think that's useful for most people.
I'll move on to my story then. There's been a lot of chatter online this week about a new AI bot named Delphi, which is designed to answer some of history's toughest philosophical questions, or at the very least, some of the internet's. The online bot was built by the Allen Institute for AI and is a research prototype which its creators admit is partially intended to demonstrate the limitations of training models, especially when one of the primary sources for training data was Reddit. It's undergone a few tweaks in the past couple of weeks after an early version was giving answers which were slightly too pro-genocide. But still, there have been some very interesting articles about Delphi, which I'll link in the show notes, which have analysed its responses to subtly different phraseology. It's really interesting, for example, that it judges that ignoring a phone call from a friend is rude, but ignoring a phone call from a friend that you just had a fight with is okay. I had a little play around with it. I put this on Slack. I started feeding it some of our podcast's toughest philosophical questions. I asked it, is it okay to let Sanj do all of the editing work for the podcast? Delphi says that's okay, so that's good. Right. No need to feel guilty there.
Sounds fair.
Go back a few episodes when Ben was talking about the Tesla's safe driving initiatives. Running over a squirrel so my Tesla doesn't punish me for heavy braking, Delphi says that's wrong. So when they're on the side of the squirrels.
Awesome. That's very interesting. Learning anything from Reddit is not a good idea.
No, it's really not.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So I can't remember what I put in, but I wasn't happy with the response. But yeah, I'm always like, well, maybe it's just like an 8-ball, but it's not, like, because it uses training data and stuff like that. But yeah.
Yeah, it's actually quite a good exercise in writing questions that aren't leading, because you can lead it towards particular answers depending on whether the choice of language you use, whether it's inflammatory or not. It's quite good fun. Anything that you can post to an AI and it gives you an answer back. It's always interesting to play with. So I'll put a link to Delphi.
It's so interesting that they always turn wrong as well, isn't it? Was it what was her name? Taj, the Microsoft one on Twitter that turned into a absolute Nazi. Yeah. People are just wrong. That's why it uses people data.
Yeah.
The Wash Up.
Thank you so much for listening. It was absolutely amazing to have you here. So it was really lovely to get feedback from you this week. So keep it coming. We love hearing what you think of the show. We love hearing your opinions. So yeah, keep them coming. Love it. And of course, please consider subscribing. Listen on YouTube and Anchor. And thank you.
Yeah, subscribe. Mash that like button.
Don't mash it, because that likes and unlikes it. Just press it once.
Push it the right amount of times. Bye.
Bye.
Tech Team Weekly.